Welcome to the 25th session where we are creating a global well-being curriculum using ancient wisdom, 5,000-year-old texts, ideas of the Indian knowledge system. In this session, the approach to economics that prevents social pain and meets the new goal of education will be discussed. What are the expectations from economics as a discipline today? There are many, but take 5 minutes and do write down 2 such expectations, keeping in view that OECD has changed the goal from prosperity, which was the earlier focus of economics. What are the expectations from economics in this session? There are many, but 2 major expectations from economics today are: 1. It should meet the objective of OECD for creating transformative competencies. And secondly, meeting this objective should be based on a methodology envisioned by recent work of some Nobel laureates. This leads to 2 questions. How can transformative competencies be created so that global economies enjoy well-being along with prosperity? And secondly, what is the nature of economic theory that should guide thought for this to happen? As the questions are different from those posed earlier, the answers in this session too are likely to be not only different but very different. The first task is creating transformative competencies. This requires understanding the process of transformation first. Ancient wisdom states that transformation really occurs only when it is a matter of choice. Indian knowledge system says that it will be accompanied by self-observation and self-analysis. The test of its success is when it leads to voluntary self-discipline. Self-analysis is often a moment of truth. The 2008 recession was one such moment of truth for economics. We found economists were the harshest critics during this self-analysis at that time. But what ideas can lead economics to voluntarily follow self-discipline? This exploration will consume the first part of this session. A self-analysis by 2008's Nobel laureate Krugman in a 2009 article published in New York Times asks, and I quote, "How did economists get it so wrong?" unquote. He admitted that economists, both saltwater, that is universities on east and west coast of USA, biased towards Keynes, and the freshwater economists of universities which are near North American Great Lakes, who consider Keynes as irrelevant. Both these schools could not predict the 2008 crisis. Economists, he says, in chasing their dream of giving an elegant economic theory of everything, were trapped in a self-belief of Robert Lucas in early 2000s that, and I quote him, "the central problem of depression prevention has been solved," unquote. The first point he made was that economists mistook beauty for truth. It is apparent that the gross truth tempted all. Indian knowledge systems explores the subtle truth of creation beyond apparent beauty. Is it a fit instrument to use in economics? Krugman believed, the 2008 Nobel laureate Krugman believed that economists mistook beauty for truth as they chased an elegant economic theory of everything. Krugman's beauty was an assumption that stocks and other assets are always priced rightly and markets are inherently stable barring externalities. Externalities are costs that people impose on others without paying a price. Keynes thought financial markets were like a casino. However, the capital asset pricing model added beauty and neatness of mathematics to what was revealed as a camouflage of truth in 2008. The use of classical economics' idea of profit maximization or maximum self-interest or selfishness did not set any limits to human behavior. Economists agree that 2008 recession was an alarming affair. Have some economists sounded an alarm before? In 2004, a book titled Economics of Innocent Fraud: The Truth of Our Time was published. Its back cover said, "It is sounding the alarm on the gap between conventional wisdom," a phrase he coined, "and reality," unquote. John Kenneth Galbraith, the eminent economist who wrote this book, warned of a collusion to create a myth of a benign market system. And I quote, "ultimately meaning that we have come to condone legal, legitimate, innocent fraud," unquote. He concluded that traditional wisdom leads to the economics of innocent fraud. 2008, however, was not innocent. If traditional wisdom is not useful, we will explore ancient wisdom of Indian knowledge systems here. After the 2008 recession, the virtues of market-based economics were questioned as it had led to such a meltdown. Economists use fiscal policies and monetary policies. The fiscal problems in the United States of America are described by many economists, including former USA Secretary of Commerce's Peterson Foundation. The former World Bank's chief economist Romer has said that, and I quote, "For more than 3 decades, macroeconomics has gone backward," unquote. In 2008, when the world needed them the most, economists were unable to help. If knowledge cannot help, would wisdom help? John Kenneth Galbraith had witnessed the Great Depression as a student and concluded his writing in 2004. He rules out conventional wisdom as a solution here. If some economists feel that macro theory is stuck and others prove that conventional wisdom will not help, we seek solutions from ancient wisdom of Indian knowledge systems. Ancients never saw derivatives or problems like those being faced today. But wisdom gives a perspective towards everything. It is evident that economics and economists believed that they were generating wisdom, till the time Galbraith termed it conventional wisdom that led to innocent fraud. But Indian knowledge systems' direction of thought can teach us to always keep the focus on purpose that generates ethics. What is purpose? Activities undertaken to increase individual and social well-being while attempting to restrict inequality and fulfill the purpose of all in society. Both in the free markets and in Indian knowledge systems, in both systems, freedom is given. Let's see how a theory of everything works for both of them. Free markets in current knowledge system give freedom. How to prevent its misuse by innocent or not so innocent fraud? Laws, regulation is our current solution. Its evidence is social pain and an inability to predict recessions. What is the idea of Indian knowledge system? The ideal of Indian knowledge system is self-regulation. It works through righteous conduct that comes with practices of Indian knowledge system. A recognition of truth about oneself leads to experiencing an interconnection of oneself with society and nature, and this experience occurs within oneself. Expressing an innate individuality and creativity is done within this concept of oneness, which is promoted in Indian knowledge system. So, evidence in current knowledge system points to an inability to predict recessions and an inability to prevent social pain. The evidence of use of Indian knowledge systems in both cases will be shared for all to verify independently. What makes laissez-faire work? The theory of everything can only become effective if Indian knowledge systems self-regulation ensures prosperity for both individual and society, promoting social and economic balance. Self-regulation is the essence of a wise laissez-faire. Indian knowledge system seeks to create it through practices. The practice is the practice of fulfilling desires in a manner that does not harm society, and it is done in a manner that creates excellence filled with goodness in a social context. Such an expression actualizes human potential. Restricting competition is guided by greed and a fear of competition. It creates barriers to actualizing our potential by giving an unfair advantage to a few. Indian knowledge system seeks to remove such thought that in the long run leads to laziness and lack of motivation for innovation. Indian knowledge system removes a distorted understanding of the fair way of business by transforming practice of economics. Is it fair to be lazy? If this question of IKS is not asked in the interpretation of laissez-faire, social and economic problems emerge. Laziness, unfairness are signs of weakness which hide a lack of self-confidence, leading to monopoly, oligopoly, cheating of stakeholders, hiding the terms and conditions of derivatives in small letters, in small point, in a 100-page document. Indian knowledge system develops self-confidence that gives a sense of fairness. It brings out the best in oneself and in others. If all work to the best of their abilities, well-being with productivity and prosperity is created always. In any competition, fairness raises the bar and challenges all to bring out their best. Indian knowledge system brings out our uniqueness to compete with our past work. This increases skills and variety of unique offerings for all become possible. Thus, a study of economics in Indian knowledge system is called Artha Shastra. What is the significance of the word Artha? It is often taken as business. Its inner significance is that activity which declares the distinction of humans from the animal kingdom and others. The current idea of beauty, of maximizing personal profit or greed, is centered around the I, me, mine. A fast cycle of I, me, mine rotating, this triangle rotating in a fast cycle looks like a zero and reveals zero idea of the truth. The truth of the human being or society is reduced to zero. In Indian knowledge system, the idea of truth of well-being is actualized with humility of aligning self-interest with others' interest. This oneness leads to realizing the infinite potential of well-being. Does economics reward a view contrary to selfishness? 1992's Nobel laureate Gary Becker added altruism to economic theory, and I quote, I have tried to pry economists away from narrow assumptions about self-interest, driven by a much richer set of values and preferences. Individuals maximize welfare as they conceive it, whether they be selfish, altruistic, loyal, unquote. Adam Smith's work has always been interpreted as an invitation to a greed-driven view of profit maximization, while Indian knowledge system uses the concept of optimization with the needs of society. Adam Smith was also the author of The Theory of Moral Sentiments before he wrote The Wealth of Nations. Did he assume that what was obvious to him will be obvious to all others? Did he assume that a natural study of limits is natural to all human beings? So let's go to part 2 now. What is the nature of economic theory needed? The focus in economic theory has moved to evidence-based approach. A couple of recent Nobel laureates have advocated it. Galbraith stated the truth of our time as innocent fraud. The 2008 Nobel laureate said that truth is beyond apparent beauty which sense perception sees. What should be the truth of economics? The 2017 Nobel Prize winner Thaler encourages evidence-based theory. His nudge transforms behavior, creates social well-being by making some things easy. 2019's Nobel laureate Duflo and Banerjee of MIT's Poverty Action Lab seeks transformational changes in healthcare, education, etc. using evidence-based approaches. Sessions 21 and 22 given earlier fulfill this need of economic theory. Evidence of Indian knowledge system's well-being concept, inculcated for sustained transformation of individuals and society for over 4 decades, has been shared in these sessions. In a hamlet, 4 decades ago, a school taught current knowledge system curriculum using practices of Indian knowledge system. From primary to PhD, free of cost, education was given. Those who have imbibed the practices of Indian knowledge system serve in a couple of super specialty hospitals where all treatment, including surgeries, are given free of cost. Over 5 million free services of the highest global standards have been given till date. These free services include free cardiac surgeries, neurosurgeries, pacemakers, etc. Over 326,000 free surgeries, 26 million free diagnostic tests have been delivered. The mobile hospital covers 440 villages. In addition to this, free drinking water facilities have been provided to 1,600 neighboring villages, giving relief to 3 million people, including 4 cities and including one of India's 5 top metros. A BBC write-up on the 2019 Nobel laureates stated that they believed, and I quote, there are no magic bullets to end poverty, unquote. Instead, there are a number of things which could help. It lists 3. 1. The first, a simple piece of information can make a big difference, and it gives the example that what is the easiest way to get infected with HIV. 2. Secondly, it states it could even be doing the right thing based on what we know, and it gives the example of cheap salt fortified with iron and iodine. Number 3, finally, it could be helpful innovations, and it gives the example of microcredit or electronic money transfers using mobile phones. Similarly, there are no magic bullets in Indian knowledge system. A simple piece of information, that is, Indian knowledge system's practices of seeking truth in thought, word and deed can make a big difference. This is as per the first condition. And doing the right thing, that is investigating truth sincerely, coincides with the second condition used by the Nobel laureates. Helpful innovations that keep the spirit of work alive in the world's ever-changing complex situations helps meet the third condition listed in this article. Indian knowledge system act of seeking truth and doing the right thing unravels creativity and individuality of all. Hence, the Nobel laureate's research pattern, like any sincere research, has similarities with Indian knowledge systems. It needs to be validated by using it. But is there evidence of prosperity using practices of Indian knowledge system? That Bharat, the land of truth and righteous conduct, was a golden bird was considered mythologies. Angus Madison's research proved that it is otherwise. Will this apply to the small hamlet of 1920s with 200 population and one dusty road only? Today, this hamlet, it is proposed to be made as a district headquarter of the 7th largest district by area is being broken up and divided into 2 districts. And this small hamlet of 1900s will be the district headquarter of the second part. An arid land is now, and I quote, a mix of natural beauty, aesthetics, education, medical facilities and land and water resources to suit the demands of a district headquarter, unquote. Does IKS well-being include prosperity? We are inviting everybody to test this hypothesis. Prosperity, they say in IKS, is a handmaiden of wisdom. This hypothesis has to be tested by individuals and by society. We are only sharing some evidence as an invitation to test the hypothesis. In this small hamlet of 1900s, a global automobile major has invested $1.1 billion in a 536-acre automobile factory nearby. This greenfield plant uses the most advanced technology. It employs over 3,000 people, including its partners, and an investment of $2 billion is being made to create indirect employment for 7,000 people. The idea is not to show any direct link, but we are wondering whether forces of nature recognize alignment of human effort with the natural balance that exists in nature. Do they help to create sustainable prosperity? This is to be tested by society. So, can a theoretical foundation be drawn of practices of Indian knowledge system and a practice of economics? Evidence-based theory may like to test the hypothesis of Indian knowledge system to replicate its practices that have worked in a small microcosm of society. But will they work for individuals too? Indian knowledge system says that following its practices reveals the larger truth. The selfishness of I, me, mine does not enable a vision of the larger truth. Is there evidence that the larger truth of recessions may be revealed even though the 2008 Nobel laureate states that no school of economics could predict the 2008 crisis? A professor of Chicago Booth, who is credited with predicting 2008's recession, admitted to CNBC in an interview in 2019 that recessions cannot be predicted. Does use of Indian knowledge systems practices provide any evidence-based basis of a future theory here? Do IKS practices impart an ability to predict recessions? Is work coinciding with TOPS a coincidence or is it evidence? Only practice by each person who is listening to this session, practice by them can test this hypothesis. In Business Times Singapore on October 4, 2007, the front page and editorial page carried a headline, "The Story of Goldilocks in the House of Bears," with the subtitle, "Will cheap credit and hedges make her lead the world markets into the house of bears?" Economic growth at that time was referred to as Goldilocks growth. October 6 and 7, 2007 were Saturday, Sunday trading holidays. This article was published on October 4th. Equities in the USA began to fall on October 9, 2007 and cascaded in 2008. The warning in the article was given on October 4. Economic contraction over 2 successive quarters is generally considered a recession. However, it may not always be so. When did the economic contraction actually start? The National Bureau of Economic Research USA's Business Cycle Dating Committee's calculation is the final word in this matter. Is this accurate prediction due to coincidence, chance, or analysis? No claim of ability to predict a recession is being made. Instead, a realization is shared that even an accurately timed prediction of 2008 and subsequently of 2020 recessions could not prevent the misery of millions. Therefore, prevention may be more productive. The accuracy of 2008's prediction was confirmed by the USA's NBER that the recession started in December 2007. Later, the NBER also confirmed that a recession started in March 2020. A prediction of the latter was made at an international academic conference. Similarly, other attempts to warn all were timed with stock market tops. This leads to a question. What was the 2008 prediction? The article said, and I quote, "When rates increase from 5% to 7%, this implies a 40% increase in the amount of interest to be paid. US Fed fund rates have risen from 1% to 5.25% in the last few years. When in late 2007 the interest rates are adjusted upwards, severe pain is likely to be felt. An estimated US 1 trillion on ARMs or adjustable rate mortgage will be reset. According to a typical exploding ARM subprime loan, buyers are considered qualified for loan if the original teaser monthly payment is not higher than 61% of their post-tax income. The scheme works out such that in 2 years, without interest rate increase, the repayment becomes 96% of the purchaser's income." Unquote. The efficient market hypothesis failed in 2008. Lawrence Summers, a blue-blooded economist and president of Harvard University, famously said, and I quote, "There are idiots, full stop, look around," unquote, as he did not believe in the efficient market hypothesis. The efficient market hypothesis believes that when every participant in markets maximizes personal gain, it leads to balance. The infallibility of markets became a matter of faith for some economists. The low interest rates made even eminent names like Eugene Fama, the father of efficient market hypothesis, and the then Fed chair Ben Bernanke, believe that USA's home price increases before 2008 largely reflect strong economic fundamentals. Low interest rates are blamed for such optimism. 2008 did try, but maybe could not change many such beliefs. 2020 may do so. Indian knowledge systems evidence shows voluntary self-restraint of Indian knowledge systems practices may make the efficient markets work. Ancient wisdom of Indian knowledge system thus fulfill both requirements of modern economics. It provides an evidence-based approach for economic analysis and developing economic theory. In Indian knowledge systems, transformation of the individual is the way to achieve balance in society and create well-being. When education transforms all individuals so that they can see the oneness principle of Indian knowledge systems and put it in action, it may be possible to predict recessions. While this is a hypothesis, it is to be tested by all, and the evidence of sustained well-being in a microcosm of society for 4 decades is irrefutable evidence of the efficacy of the Indian knowledge system's concepts of economics. Will current economic theory check this evidence by using practices of Indian knowledge systems in daily life? Because practice is Indian knowledge systems' basis of theory. Without practice, no theory, however good, works. This course lays a deep emphasis on practice. Every attempt is made to make all the lectures very short. A 5-minute slot at the end of this lecture is being given for silent sitting. This is to enable the participant to mull over what is said. Whatever has been heard should be repeated in the mind so that it gets absorbed. Just as sugar is stirred in a cup of tea or coffee with a spoon, use the spoon of silence to stir the sugar of Indian knowledge systems in your mind. It takes some time for the tea or coffee to become sweet. Patience is very important. The perspectives shared in the course will seem meaningful only if such silent sitting is done to mull over what has been said. Else, the half an hour spent in delivering the lectures will be a waste of time. We welcome you to undertake an inner journey during these 5 minutes. Only then will knowledge that is outside you will become wisdom inside you. The time allocated for this is actually 20 minutes, not 5 minutes. The time should be increased gradually. This is also a time for the mind to take rest. In case it cannot do that, mull over whether the voice of the conscience has guided you at any time in life till now. We accept challenges for the physical body in games. In a gym, we can have a 20 minutes plank challenge. We may exchange challenges on the quantity of food we can eat. Can we go beyond such challenges to the second step of the Indian knowledge systems? Can we see if the mind itself can take rest and maybe stop working? Can we explore what will happen if it becomes zero? Remember, it is not good to challenge the mind. It rebels and makes you do the opposite of what you want it to do. It is far simpler to observe the mind. For doing this, first the physical body should move as little as possible. Observe the mind as it tells the body to move. You are not telling the body to move, the mind is telling the body to move. Observe the mind. Move away from the mind and see what it is forcing the body to do. Watch the mind as if you are sitting on a fan at a distance. When you are at home, Shavasana in yoga is a good posture for this practice. Try to first silence the body, then the mind. For those who have mastered this, they can try the next method. When you think of nothing, can you experience love without giving it a shape of a thing like your favorite food or a thing that you want to own or the physical form of a person? Can it just be love without an emotion to a person or a thing? Can it be love for the sake of love? How do you experience loving yourself? The purpose of this course is to help you discover yourself, that loving being beyond the body and the mind.